Today's webinar is on removing barriers to disability services through assistive technology. And our presenters will provide tools and insights and expertise on empowering individuals with disabilities to choose the assistive technology to fit their needs, how to identify communication barriers and use adaptive technology to improve remote learning, evaluate how technology can help individuals achieve their personal goals and do so in a person-centered way. And finally, training and supporting someone with their assistive technology. So again, I hope you really enjoyed today's presentation. We think it's going to be a great one. And we are joined by two presenters, Maureen DeCoste, the Executive Director of Ability Now Bay Area, will present in a little while. But first, we have Karen Moore, the Executive Director of Developmental Disability Services at PathPoint, to start our presentation today. Thank you again for being here. And Karen, take it away.
Thank you, Barry, and thank you to the CDSA, Easter Seals of Southern California, and the Disability Thrive Initiative for organizing this webinar. I'm very happy to be here today, sharing what PathPoint has learned about using person-centered planning for assistive technology. Next slide, please. PathPoint provides services to almost 3,000 individuals in 5 counties, including the cities of Paso Robles in the north, Bakersfield in the east, and Long Beach in the southern Los Angeles County area. Our services range from employment, helping people secure jobs and providing job coaching, supporting people in their homes with independent living services, and providing community integration services in our day supports. Next slide, please. A few years ago, PathPoint received a grant from DDS through Tri-Counties and Kern Regional Centers before the pandemic on addressing the technology needs of people we support. We continued the project during COVID. Using person-centered tools and technology assessments, we planned and prepared to incorporate technology into a person's life, which aided them achieving their goals and gaining greater independence. The guide is translated on our website in both English and Spanish, and the PCT tools and assessments can be found there too. Key elements of the guide are for access, communication, control, creativity, inclusion, and independence. Next slide, please. Assistive technologies give a person access to all environments, at home, at a day service, at school or work, in the community, and with friends. The key to success with technology is through person-centered planning and assessments. Nothing is worse than purchasing a device that the person needs assistance with and supporters do not know how to help. With proper planning, technology can be chosen that works best for the person, and a support team can be identified for long-term assistance with the technology. Next slide, please. Person-centered planning puts the person in charge of planning their life. It is a way for supporters to find out what a person's hopes, dreams, and fears are. Person-centered planning is not a one-time event, but a continuous process involving people who know and care about the person, family members, friends, and supporters. Next slide, please. To determine the best technology for a person, the process of planning is broken down into 4 phases. The first phase is getting to know the person, where we learn about what's important to them, their likes and dislikes, and discover who could be supporters in different environments. The second phase is assessment for the desired outcomes. What does a person know already about technology? Who can be a support team? And what task does a person want to do with the technology? Phase 3 is the tracking and training, which lets us understand what's working and not working, training needed, and helps us figure out the next phase, which is the tech summary. In the tech summary phase, an assistive technology one-page description is created to help others know how to best support the person to use their assistive technology in different environments. Next slide, please. In the guide, each person-centered tool is introduced and instructions on filling it out are given, along with both an example of one that's filled out and a blank copy for any of you to copy and use. Next slide, please. So to begin the person-centered process, we first want to get to know the person who will be using the technology. Person-centered thinking has some great tools to assist with this. Next slide, please. We start with a relationship map. It lets us know who the person knows and how they know them. Family, friends, coworkers, etc. This helps us determine who should be included in the planning process and possible long-term supporters for the technology that's to be chosen. A modified relationship map can let us know who to contact for technology support. Next slide, please. Here is an example of a relationship map that was made by Carissa. This example shows how icons can give us some insight into the different relationships. Next slide, please. Another important person-centered tool we use is the one-page description. This lets us know what is great about the person, what others like and admire about them. We also learn what's important to the person, their likes and dislikes, what makes them happy, content, fulfilled, and what are the best ways to support the person. Next slide, please. This is Terry's one-page description. Even if you never met Terry, you can get to know her. We can learn that Terry has a great sense of humor, is very observant, seems to have eyes in the back of her head, likes hanging out with her partner in crime, Joy, and doesn't want to be rushed when she is eating, along with other important ways to support her when she eats. Terry loved being part of our assistive technology grant and guide and achieving some of her goals. Unfortunately, Terry passed away several months ago. The Assistive Technology Guide is dedicated to Terry. Terry grew up in a time where people with disabilities did not have the opportunities to gain independence that they do today. She said, "If only my parents could see me now," especially after she participated in a beta test for a groundbreaking new communication technology for people with disabilities. You can learn more about Terry and her accomplishments in the technology guide on our website. Next slide, please. Next, we use the decision-making profile, which helps us learn how a person likes to get their information, such as written, orally, emailed, how to present choices to a person by a trusted support person or family, ways to help a person understand, such as speaking slowly, not using jargon, and find out when the best time and worst time is for the person to make decisions. In the example shown for Jamie, we know she likes getting her information through email, her friends, favorite staff, and over FaceTime. She wants choices presented from a buddy or a staff that's a good match for her. The ways we can help Jamie understand is by talking slowly in a calm voice with simplified details. Check in and see if she understands, and give her time to research her options. The best time for her to make a decision is after 1 o'clock, having one conversation in a quiet place. The worst time is in the morning. Next slide, please. Once we know important information about a person, we do assessments with the person and their support team to learn what the person wants to achieve and see if technology can help them with their goals. Next slide, please. The Technology Assessment and Support Plan, or TASP, is completed with a person and their support team. It helps determine the needs a person has that technology can help address. It also helps identify a specific technology device to address each need. We worked with Kathy in her support circle and found out she wanted to learn how to send text messages, add seizures to an app that was helping her track her seizures, and how to find videos on YouTube, along with other important information. Next slide, please. The Individual Environment Task and Tool, or IETT, helps determine what environments the technology will be used in. It fine-tunes current use of technology and the tasks a person wants to complete and reinforces the team support system. Key elements are on the next slide, please. The first key element is the individual. As with all persons that are planning, the individual is at the center of their plan. This assessment can be done for different environments, such as where the person lives and learns, at home, the community, school, or work. It helps a person determine the specific tasks the person needs and wants to accomplish and the tools needed to accomplish the task. The IETT also pinpoints what success would look like if the key elements are met for the person utilizing the technology. Next slide, please. The third phase is tracking and training, where we review what we have learned and identify needed training. Next slide, please. The learning log is a way to capture and document information in a way that lets others know what, when, where, who, and what worked and didn't about the experience. A learning log can be used to track progress and share with the support network. The learning log captures more than just daily notes. It captures what works and doesn't work. As new supporters come into a person's life, they can read the learning logs and catch up on what's worked and not worked with the process. In the example shown, Sarah wanted to learn how to log in with her password on her iPad. We learned after instructions she was able to complete the task independently, and when she tried to repeat the task, she forgot her password. It was suggested she create a password that was easier for her to remember and or write it down where she could easily access it. Next slide, please. The 4+1 questions are a way to review the aspects of a certain situation, such as the work and planning with technology. 4+1 questions can be used as a tool to review progress, reflect on goals, or troubleshoot. The questions are, what did you try? What did you learn? What are you pleased about? In other words, what worked well? And what are you concerned about? That is, what didn't work well or any challenges. The last question is, given what we know, what's next? This question is the action plan based on the learning. The tool works best if answering a question. For example, how is technology working for you? Then you could go through the 4+1 questions. You can send out the 4+1 questions ahead of time to give people time to think about the answers. If a supporter can't make a meeting, they can fill out the questions and have their perspective recorded. The 4+1 questions can be used to review work and progress towards goals. Remember, the +1 question is about what to do based on what was learned. It's basically the action plan. In the example shown, Jamie and her team were reviewing the supports Jamie was receiving on her goals. Next slide, please. The fourth phase is a text summary. This phase lets us know the best way to support the person with their technology. Next slide, please. The one-page description, also known as a one-page tech profile, is a brief overview of who the person is and what technology means to the person. The one-page tech description provides an overview of how technology is used to best support the person. It lets everyone know what good support looks like and describes how the person wants to be supported with their technology. If you are a supporter, let the person know if you need more detail on ways to support them with their technology. Pictures can be used to help show detail. Next slide, please. This is Chris's one-page tech description. Some of the things that are important to her is having Wi-Fi available, looking at recipes and learning to cook, and the need for internet safety. Before we move to the next slide, I want to talk about Jamie. Jamie chose to work with us with the technology grant. In the technology guide, she shared her decision-making profile and 4+1 questions, which we saw earlier in the slideshow. She wanted to share the impact technology has made on her life. So let's hear from Jamie in her own words. Next slide, please.
I wanna be with this is life I do.
So are you changing the light color? Okay, show me how you change it. job, Jamie. Okay, can you turn it off and on for me? Yay!
I'll call you. Mama.
Hello.
Hello.
Why are you so happy?
I got cow.
Oh, you had cats. Did you go out for cats?
I know I want to go.
Oh,
I'm making a movie.
you're making a movie?
But having the iPad during COVID, did that help out? How did that help you?
Happy.
Having technology made you happy?
Oh, yeah.
What if you didn't have your iPad during COVID?
I'm mad.
You'd be mad?
Oh, yeah.
So basically, the technology helped you stay connected with your family
Oh, yeah.
and your friends,
Cap.
and Cap.
Yeah. Thank you, help. Bye.
It's easy to take for granted some of the daily tasks we do: open doors, turn on and off lights, turn on a TV. One of Jamie's goals was to be able to control her own lights. When asked about technology she uses, she said, "I'm so happy with all my new skills, especially gaining the ability to control the lights in my environment. It's made me so happy." Her supporters at home said while working with Jamie, they have seen that her assistive technology has helped her prepare her for her doctor's appointments. She's able to research procedures before going to her appointment. This helps ease her nerves and makes her more prepared. While in isolation due to COVID-19, her assistive technology has helped her stay in communication with her loved ones and staff. When we weren't able to be there by her side, she let us know her needs. She was able to let us know some of the needs of her roommates too, and when her roommate needed help. Her assistive technology is a big help. In the video, you can see Jamie is back at her day service CAP in Santa Barbara. One of the things she loves is making movies, which she is learning to do at CAP. Her goals are to control her home environment, change the lights in her bedroom, and use her tablet in bed. As you can see, she's achieving her goals, and we are looking forward to learning what she wants to accomplish next. Next slide, please. Please put any questions you might have into the Q&A. You can also reach out personally to me via my email. The Assistive Technology Resource Guide is available on PathPoint's website and can be used by individuals receiving services, families, and other providers. PathPoint recently received a grant to create an assistive technology lending library in the Tri-Counties area of San Luis Obispo, Santa Barbara, and Ventura counties. We will be doing person-centered assessments and lending technology in those counties in the near future. Thank you for this opportunity to speak today. It's my pleasure to introduce you to our next speaker, Maureen DeCoste, Executive Director, Ability Now in the Bay Area, who will be showing us many different assistive technology choices. Maureen?
All right. Thank you, Karen. That was actually an amazing video that you showed. It was great. And actually what you guys did really segues into what we do. As you saw with PathPoint, they determine with a person-centered plan what's going to work for somebody. What are their needs? What do they want to achieve with assistive technology? With Ability Now, we actually have different forms of technology that I will get into in a minute. Next slide, please. So Ability Now is actually a day program for adults with disabilities. We are located in Oakland, California. We have hybrid classes that integrate an on-site classroom as well as a virtual classroom. Our virtual classroom started, as many other programs have had to change due to COVID. And so now we have participants that are on site maybe 2 to 3 days a week, and then they participate in our online classes the rest of the week. And it's actually been incredibly successful because a lot of people actually prefer to have a hybrid program. They don't always want to be on site. We provide a wellness program, which includes adaptive yoga, which is both on site and in a virtual classroom. We have massage therapy. Many of our participants are in wheelchairs, and as you can imagine, they get very stiff, they get very sore. And so the massage therapy helps relax their muscles and takes away a lot of the pain that they often feel because of being in a wheelchair all day. We also provide Feldenkrais Movement, which is a form of therapy that allows people to move in a way that is less stressful on their body. We have a small business program, which helps many of our participants start and manage their own businesses. We provide a community integration program, which takes our participants out into the community in various ways, whether it's to take them to the bank, take them to the store, or out to a baseball game. We provide this 5 days a week. And we have what is called our Laura Long Technology Center that has a variety of assistive technologies, which we will show you in a little bit. But first, we have to ask ourselves, what is assistive technology? And when we use that term, I think many people assume it's something that's been developed in Silicon Valley and it's used on computers or some new form of technology. But assistive technology is really any tool that helps someone communicate in one form or another. Next slide, please. So a flip book is a form of assistive technology. So we have these flip books that were actually designed by one of our participants in our small business center by Monique Harris. Video, please. So as you can see with this flip book, if somebody is nonverbal and they need to speak, they can flip through this book and they can point at the pictures showing what it is that they are trying to say. It's very simple, but for some participants, it really is the easiest form of communication. Next slide, please. There we go. Thank you. This is Monique Harris. She is actually our participant in small business who designed those flip books. And she designed it because she worked with people who did not have the ability to speak. And so as she was working with them, she thought, well, what's going to work for them? But what's interesting for Monique, what she uses as her assistive technology is a head wand. Video, please. So as you can see with Monique, she uses a head wand to help her move about on her computer. She has a very severe form of spastic cerebral palsy, and so it was always difficult for her to use her hands. When she was in her 20s, she actually learned how to type using a head wand, and she continues to use this today. She is an incredible artist with just the use of this simple form of technology. She not only does she create her flip books, she creates print designs, she creates artwork, she writes poetry, she's a published author, and she's absolutely phenomenal to actually watch in person as she uses this form of technology. You may notice that on the right side of that keyboard, she uses what are called IntelliKeys. She doesn't use the mouse, but she uses the keyboard, the key about and to go up and down and different ways to maneuver on the keyboard. Next slide, please. So of course, assistive technology embraces computers. Our Laura Long Technology Center offers multiple forms of way for people to access computers. We have 4 different iPads, and we also have computers that are outfitted specifically to accommodate just about every single type of disability. Our participants use the computers to either, work on a learning program, to listen to music, to watch videos, to talk to people or family that are across the country. And it's really has opened up the world for our participants to be able to communicate in so many multiple different ways. Next slide, please. So this is Veronica. Veronica uses a touch screen computer. Can you run the video, please? So because Veronica has such severe spasticity and a cognition that doesn't recognize the connection of the mouse to screen, this touch screen actually works best for her. And so you'll see she's working on one of her education programs. And as you can see, the desks are all set at a level where she can easily access the screen and write in what she needs to put into her program. This then transfers over to one of her other classes. I believe it's her spelling class. And there you go. She's done well. Right. So that is one form of technology. Could I have the next screen, please, to show our next form of assistive technology? So this is Luis. If you look at his computer and if you look at his keyboard, you will notice that he has a guard on the keyboard. Next slide, please. No, I'm sorry, run the video, go back. Sorry. So Luis has severe spasticity. So this guard allows him to keep his fingers on the right keys as he's trying to spell. He also uses the IntelliKeys, just like Monique did, which are on the lower right-hand side, and that allows him to go up and down. And as you can see, he uses his right side. This is where he has most of his mobility. And it's set up so he can really move well with his right side on that keyboard. All right. Next slide. There we go. Thank you. So now this is Cynthia. Cynthia has a little bit more mobility in her hands. She doesn't have as much of a spasticity problem as Luis did or as Veronica did. So she is actually able to use the trackball. Video, please.
No.
So if you watch the way she uses the trackball, it's very easy for her to go up and down and maneuver it around. Again, she doesn't use the mouse. That's too hard for her, but this does work for her. I want you to observe what Cynthia is actually watching on her screen, which is wrestling. This is her absolute favorite thing in the world to watch. Oh, she's moved on to a different video. But oftentimes when she is in our tech center, it is because she needs to catch up on WW SmackDown or Monday Night SmackDown. But as you can see, it's very easy for her to maneuver with her just using her finger. Next slide, please. Now this is Larry. Larry has one side of his body that he can use quite well, which is his right side. The left side of his body, he really does not use at all. So we have set up this computer specifically for him. As you can see, the joystick is on the right-hand side for him. And even though the keyboard is there, he doesn't really use it that much. Could you run the video, please? Now watch how he's able to move that joystick around.
Hello, Larry Craig.
Now, that was him using the technology to speak from the computer. He also has a device that does the same exact thing, where he's able to program in his name or anything else that he wants to say. And again, it is designed where everything is on the right side of his body, so he can maneuver it more easily.
Significance.
Okay, next slide, please. Now we do have some participants that have very little, if any, mobility. And we have actually found a form of technology where all you have to do is put a straw in your mouth and blow on the screen in order for it to click around much like a mouse. Could you show the video, please? Now this is Mary. She's never really been able to access the computer very well until we got her this form of technology, where all she has to do is blow. And as you can see, that blowing movement actually works as the mouse clicking on the screen, and she's able to access programs, play games, or different things. It's a little bit slow, but she is able to do it.
Exactly. I want to try again.
All right. Now, I do have another form of technology that I'd like to actually show you. We don't have video of this, but this is a form of technology that a lot of our participants use also. And it's basically, it's done with a dot on your head. And I've just put that on my head. And then it's actually used as a tracker. And this is what our tracker looks like. So as you can see, I have put a dot on my head and I have this tracker, and this is actually set up on top of the computer screen. And so for our participants that again have no mobility in their hands, but they do have some mobility in their head, they are able to actually move their heads around. The little dot on my head works with the tracker, and it will work to click on the screen, and they are able to go on the screen. They can access, websites, everything. It works the same exact way as clicking on a mouse does. All right, next screen, please. Okay, so our Laura Long Technology Center is actually open for visitors if anybody would like to come and see what we have. Our long-term goal is to actually open our Laura Long Technology Center out to the public and make it available for everybody in our disability community. We are now working with the regional center on setting up some form of program for that. And we're hoping in the future, maybe sometime next year, that we would actually make it available for those who do not have the ability to access the type of technology that we have available at Ability Now Bay Area. If you have any further questions about our technology center, please feel free to reach out. You can give us a call, or you can email me directly at our website at Ability Now Bay Area. And if anybody has any questions, we're available to answer. Thank you.
All right. I should be on. Good. Might be a good one. Okay, so thank you very much to both Karen and Maureen. I'm Will Sanford with Disability Thrive Initiative, and we're going to bring both Karen and Maureen back on screen so we can do a little Q&A from some things that we all heard. As always, fascinating to learn. As if we don't have enough initials in our lives, Karen, you just added, a couple dozen more in your resource guide, just, to do that. One of the things that I would like to go back to with the Jamie video, what were the sort of key technology things that you used in allowing Jamie to really access her iPad?
Well, that's a great question, and I'm going to punt this over to Gil Addison, who actually worked with her directly with her assessments and the technology. Gil?
Yeah, Jamie. Jamie uses a click switch, a momentary click switch that connects through a device called a Tapio that connects to an iPad, and that allows her to actually click and scan the switch controls on her iPad through the accessibility features. She's been discovering a whole bunch of different types of technologies within the iPad iOS accessibility features, like speak content is another thing that helps her choose something that she wants read to her. She's magnifier to blow things up. So she has the ability to use that switch to control that whole iPad herself. So that's one thing. So.
I also noticed that when she was controlling the lights, she was not using a click switch, but she was using a pretty low-tech solution, or what looked like a low-tech solution, which was
That was actually a CSUN project that I had when I was going to CSUN for the AT certification. What the project consisted of was figuring out a way to use assistive technology in a person's environment. And so Jamie wanting to, you know, be able to watch TV and do her Netflix and stuff, she wasn't able to do that with a regular TV set in her room. And so we had to think outside the box and come up with a whole new mounting system for the iPad. But because she was able to control the iPad with a click switch on her cheek, she can control an iPad with the minimum mobility she had in her hand, which is a good thing because I wanted to get her to stretch a little. And so what we did was we created a momentary switch that adapts to the back of the mounting system. It clamps there and it has a string, and all she has to do is pull that string with that minimal mobility and allows her to, again, use the switch and scan controls of the iPad.
Very awesome. Yeah, I noticed that. I noticed the. I was going to call it a shoelace, but it's probably a little more sophisticated than a shoelace. But it's sort of looked like the low-tech solution. So, question for Maureen. You know, the Laura Long is very cool as a situation, but how do you then help people transition to be able to use, especially communication, when they're in the community or at home? I mean, how do you sort of build that into your training and learning?
So, you know, many of our participants have communication devices if they are nonverbal. And so it's very easy for a lot of them to switch from their communication device. Actually, a lot of our younger participants actually already have iPads set up. And so they use that as their communication device currently. And then if they want to go into our tech center, then they can go onto an iPad, and then that's where they can, access videos or anything and stuff like that. We have actually, during the shutdown, we actually did a drive to get more, to have laptops donated to us that we were actually able to take into a lot of our participants' homes. So they were able to access our classroom online, because it's not always easy to, get technology, especially when you're so limited in your capacity to get out into the community. And so that has been a way that has helped them quite a bit.
And actually, I'll let you both take a shot at this one, which has come up a number of times, is how are people, in a sense, paying for the technology? Yeah. It's been historically one of our, the big challenges that, especially in communication, I know people would spend money for the Dynavox, a $7,000 to $10,000 speech device, but they couldn't get an iPad purchased for $500, which is also a speech device, but could do other things. So, how have you guys helped support people to get their own technology?
So actually for us, the Laura Long Technology Center was actually created. We used to have what was a somewhat okay tech center. And then we had a family that raised quite a bit of money for us to invest into all of these new forms of technology. And that's actually how we've gotten most of ours. Like the straw that you saw where you can blow and you could actually use that. That was something that Ted, who manages our tech center, had been looking at for a while. And he was just, oh my God, if only we could get that. And, we had this money that was raised by this family, and we were able to buy those forms of technology that in the past we would not have been able to afford to have bought. So that's where most of ours come from. And then we do have people that we get grants, that we write grants for the new technology. We have people that donate specifically towards the tech center. So that's actually how we've been able to keep our tech center up to date.
And Karen or Gil?
Yes, and then with PathPoint, we've also used grant funds. We had some provider relief funds that we were able to purchase technology, iPads and tablets. We also had our assistive technology grant. So we have a lending library within PathPoint. And then this last grant that we received through Tri-Counties, which is San Luis Obispo, Santa Barbara, and Ventura counties. We will be creating a lending library that we will be able to actually do assessments and loan out the equipment to people within those areas through tri-counties.
Awesome, that's right. So one basic question, when you start, Karen, on the intro to identifying that person-centered technology plan, is there, I'll call it, for lack of a better term, a basic level of skill or interest someone has to demonstrate in order to sort of be involved in that process? Or could you do it with anybody?
Gil, you could probably answer this question better, but my understanding is that we could do it with anybody, because part of the assessment is determining what skill a person currently has, and that helps us to determine what would be the best equipment for them to start with. Gil?
Yeah, I think with the technology assessment process that we have there, the task, the first question is, what is the desired outcome? And if it's wanting to check your email, then we go from there. I want to make sure that our guys have the opportunity to have that opportunity to try. And so that's kind of my mission in figuring this out, is that there's always an opportunity. There's always a way to get to that point. Figuring out how to get there, that's the fun stuff, and that it may take creating a new switch. It may take figuring out, we have to adapt this to get to that one place. So there's so many different little things, but first is figuring out the desired outcome and then building from there.
Maureen, any thoughts? Any additional thing besides that?
No, actually, Ted is our whiz when it comes to figuring out what works for everybody, much like it sounds like Gil is too. You have to determine what are the needs, what is it that they want, and what's going to work depending on what their limitations are. So actually, Ted works the closest with every one of our participants in helping them find what's going to work. And he'll be the first person to tell you we use a lot of duct tape because sometimes something right out of the box isn't necessarily going to work, but he will spend hours finding a way to make it work. And if that means duct taping something here or putting something there, he will be able to do it.
Awesome. I guess the other one for Gil is, and actually with Ted is the same, is there sort of a online resource chat room, something you guys use to say, hey, I had this cool idea, as a way to share that information amongst our community that people could access?
I go to Bill, what's Bill's last name? Bill, AT Makers. If you go to atmakers.org, there's some really great stuff on that website. Bill does a really great job of trying to figure out how to figure solutions out, and then he also shares his information. If it's an electronic type of challenge, he's an engineer, so he'll just say, this is how you wire this thing up, and this is how it will work. I go to him quite a bit.
Right. Yeah. I mean, as my son, the computer scientist, would say, well, I just Google it, Dad. It's out there. Google is your friend to be able to figure out how to go out and do that. So the other one would be for you guys, when you start your process, how long does it typically take, or what's the range to get from sort of understanding what someone wants to do to getting them the right combination of technology that allows them to achieve that goal?
Ted, do you want to answer that one, or?
You have to get off mute first, though, Ted.
Right. Sorry, I'm reading Q&As, trying to figure out, well, which of these Q&As am I suitable to answer? Can you ask that again?
I asked it one time. Basically, from when someone comes in and says, hey, I would like to be able to do X, Y, and Z, or it's identified, how long does it take really to go through that sort of assessments, figuring out and trying out a variety of combinations before you say they pretty successfully have got technology they can use? I mean, what's the range of times? Is it a month? Is it 12 years? Is it 2 centuries? You know, where are we in that mix?
Well, I guess I would say it's really, as you put it, it's definitely a range. Depending a lot on the person, as well as what it is they want to accomplish, and also, you know, at different times, the AT options available to us in the Laura Long Technology Center. It wasn't always called the Laura Long Technology Center. So in the past, we didn't have as much to work with, or I didn't have as much to work with to try and set people up ideally. We would often use setups that I knew weren't ideal, but they were what we could do at the time. But when I'm meeting a person who's going to be using one of the workstations in the technology center for the first time, I always ask, you know, have you used a computer before? Because sometimes they haven't. They've never had their hands on any technology before. It's not common, but it happens. Like, oh, so you're aware that there's computers and the internet out there and you want to get your hands on it. That makes perfect sense. What did you have in mind? You know, sometimes maybe they just want to look at YouTube. Oh, okay, well, I can help you with that. And let's see, figure out, can they use a regular mouse? Can they use a regular keyboard? And we sort of move out from that, I don't know, you call it like that sort of center, and move away from standard keyboard, standard mouse as far as we have to get. Do we have to go all the way to a single switch? Maybe. Can they use the dot and the tracker? Can they use that straw, joystick straw that you saw Mary using? That's called a joust. And you know, we didn't always have one of those, definitely, because, you know, kind of expensive, but we have one now. And a lot of our, particularly our participants, they're in power wheelchairs. They use, almost all of them use a very standard joystick, or many of the wheelchairs have a very similar joystick. And we have mouse or mice that are very similar to the joystick of power wheelchairs. Those come in real handy for our folks that have trouble with the standard mouse. I think a lot of able-bodied people have trouble with the standard mouse, clicking left, clicking right at the same time. Like, oops, I didn't even mean to click that, right? And you mash them both at the same time. Oh, you can't move that mouse while you're clicking. It'll, you know, it won't launch that hyperlink or whatever. So the stationary joystick, the stationary trackball, isolated buttons, so you're not mashing left and right at the same time unintentionally. Yeah, wow, I'm probably talking too much.
So it sounds like it's a lot of trial and error in that process. So there is not, I mean, there's not a handbook you can pick up and, oh, I can go down the page and say, this is what A does. It's almost everybody's individual. So again, it's very, you know, person-centered, which is where PathPoint really started off in that whole mix of, you know, what, you know, how does that go? And so the exploration of technology can take a while. And it's also, as you said, a matter of resources, what's available for folks. Have you guys spent much time using, you know, phones, you know, smartphones as the base technology for folks?
We use
iPads. Gil
iPads.
probably has more.
Yeah, we use iPads. And if there is a smartphone, especially for somebody who can't move their upper extremities, there's switch control again in the smartphone that would allow them to actually be able to scan and do the things we all do. So yeah, there's that. What else?
Well, the other one is, you know, how about speech to text for those who are verbal but may not have great, you know, reading skills and or typing skills? You know, have you guys done much in the way of speech to text?
That is something that we were actually working on a couple of projects. We were working on think to text. We were working on neurotechnologies there. Jamie had that one little part, and that's still under development. Still needs some more engineering. but they're, yeah, speak to text is a really, this one's kind of a challenge, because if you have a speech impediment, it's difficult to talk to your device. There are some studies going on right now. Google is doing a study right now where they are collecting data on different types of speech communication from individuals who can't really say the words. They're more like sounds, but these sounds are being, they're running through a system, an algorithm that's then interpreting what that sound means, and allowing a device to actually speak it or, you know, type it in a text message. Is that so? These are some new technologies that are really on the forefront right now. So yeah.
Technology now is much more fun. So I'm going to ask one final question each for Maureen and Karen. So if you had to say, what do you think, Karen, has been the greatest impact of your ability to sort of help provide technology to our folks?
I think the greatest impact we've had is helping people achieve things that we all take for granted. You know, like Jamie turning on and off her lights, being able to control her lights. Terry was wanting to eventually be able to open and close her door. She wanted to be able to turn on the TV so she didn't have to wait till a supporter came to her home to turn on the TV. It's just letting people do what I would consider, you know, what most of us just take for granted, but means the world to the person who doesn't have to rely on someone else to do those tasks for them. So I think those are huge impacts on people's lives.
Yeah, I would agree with Karen. The ability to have autonomy over how you get through your life and that independence is so critical to all of our participants. And to be able to use any form to be able to say hello or to say, I need this, and to have somebody understand you is a breakthrough for many of our participants, and it's life-changing.
Right, and I think as we go through the last, 15, 18 months of COVID, where people work from home and did that, technology was a major portion of that. And so I think, in our space, access used to be defined as, do you have a bus pass? Do you have ability to access paratransit? Whereas now, do you have internet access and the technology to use in order to be able to access that? So I think from an advocacy point of view, it'd be one that we'll really have to push down to make that go forward. And I guess the one final question for Maureen and Karen would be is, how have you been working with your direct support professionals to help them use technology? Because again, many of them did not come from a tech space. I mean, Gil and Ted obviously are very techy, but most of our direct service professionals may or may not have that much tech experience.
Well, at PathPoint, we are very fortunate to have Gil, who went through some training, received a certificate from CSUN in technology, and through a grant.
What does CSUN stand for those who aren't up on the Cal State University of Northridge?
Gil, do you have that, Gil? CSUN?
Oh yeah, CSUN, Cal State University Northridge.
Yeah, he spoiled it.
CSUN.
Thanks, Gil.
Okay.
But anyway, we part of our grant, our initial grant with technology when we created our guide, is that we were training some of our staff to be technology, I guess you could say, specialists. And so we do have some staff in each of our day services who are very familiar with technology. And Gil also, anytime we buy new equipment, especially for doing our remote sessions, he does trainings for staff just to get them up to par, because you are right, not everybody is tech savvy, but having specialists who can train our DSPs is really a tremendous help.
Yeah, we actually trained all of our DSPs on how to use Zoom, how to use the technology. And we've actually trained all of our DSPs to use a new online data tracking program that we use. We are trying to get rid of using paper. Let's save some trees. And we have moved everything up to the cloud. Ted has been phenomenal in training all of our staff. I know his eyes were saying, really? Yes, of course you were. He would have weekly trainings with them. And then we are now using a new program called StoryCare, which, as I said, it does all of our data tracking, all of our notes for our program counselors. And they've been amazing in training and support for our staff with that way. I mean, I'm really, really proud of our staff because a lot of them had never really accessed technology before. And in less than a year, they've all become amazing at it. Really proud of them.
Well, cool. So I'd really like to thank, PathPoints, Karen, Maureen from Billy Now, Ted and Gil for your expertise in sharing resources, which are going to be available at the DTI website. So I'm going to turn this back over to Barry to close us down.
Thank you, Will. Yeah, big thanks to Karen, Maureen, Gil, and Ted. Just a wealth of information, ingenuity, resources and resourcefulness. Can't thank you enough for the information you shared today. I hope it gave our attendees an idea on things that they can do to facilitate more person-centered services through assistive technology. And look forward to continuing the conversation as well on Friday at our Lunch and Learn. Our next webinar is going to be on Wednesday, July 28th from 3 to 4:15. It is on reshaping our services and our future. So we hope that you can join us for that one. And just a reminder, we do have the Lunch and Learn to follow up from this session on Friday, July 16th, just in 2 days' time, from noon to 1. It's much more interactive. Folks can ask questions, get information and feedback, and have a back and forth dialogue. So we hope that you will join us there. You can register at the link that's shown on the screen, which is lunchandlearn.disabilitythriveinitiative.org. Also a reminder that you can follow up with all the information from today's webinar, as well as our past presentations and other resources on our resource library at disabilitythriveinitiative.org. On that page, you can also sign up for email updates about the latest information on the initiative, request technical assistance or support. So that is kind of the go-to resource for you to find out all about what the Disability Thrive Initiative has to offer. With that, I will thank you.